Welcome to the JOURNEYS Webcast. I'm Allan, Karl, your host, and this is episode 10. So happy to come live to you from the country of Georgia with my special guest, Andro Barnovi. Watch this. Well, okay, it's not a live concert, I promise. It's Monday. Thank you. Wow. Crazy. Crazy things. Crazy things. Let me get the headphones on. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get to the chat room. It's not live here. We see George Walters coming. Yeah, that is George. That is a gorilla from Uganda. Actually, no, it's from Rwanda is where I went. And Michael from Montreal. So other of you guys, come on, join the chat. It's over on the right. This is the JOURNEYS Webcast. We're at episode number 10. Can you believe this? This has been going on. We're loosening up. It started as like, this is a way for me to get from cabin fever or, you know, being locked down, quarantined, sequestered here in my home in San Diego to reach out to so many great people all over the world, especially even today, including a really special guest. But before we bring Andro on, I just want a couple bits of Octavian. Okay, nice. Good to see you from Romania. Bobo, good. Let us know where you're checking in from. But here's the thing. Yeah, it's the 10th episode, so I've been doing this over 2.5 months. Guests from everywhere from Romania, Bobo, and from South Africa, Uganda, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Croatia, wherever. But you know, things are loosening up. People are positive, although there are still outbreaks, and we see Brazil is really kind of going down off the cliff there. U.S. is 22 states increasing in the purported cases, but you know, slowly we're opening up, and I think that's a good thing for everybody to feel that. I actually got an email yesterday from Aegean Airlines. Aegean Airlines is a Greek airline, and letting its past passengers know that they're now flying to more places in Europe, and they've been opening up. Of course, the U.S. didn't show on their list, but nonetheless, they are moving around. And you know, I've had two people from Greece on the webcast so far. But I wanted to tell you that today is kind of weird for me. I had a little bit of a problem the other night. I've been running around all day today to get ready for my webcast with Andro Barnovi from Georgia, an amazing man, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But full disclosure, I'm going to tell you right now, this is breaking news. Not even my family knows this right now. I think only one person who picked me up yesterday at the hospital. That's right. I spent Saturday night in the hospital and most of yesterday. And I'm going to tell you what happened. It's very weird. I'm not 100%, but at least it's not serious. I thought it was. So Saturday night, I'd finished I made a dinner and sitting sipping some wine. I was watching some live music on the TV when I got up, and all of a sudden I started walking crooked. I couldn't walk straight. I had no balance. I thought, wait a minute, I've only had 2 or 3 glasses of wine, and trust me, I've had plenty more, and I can walk perfectly. And I went and sat down again. I got up again, and I started walking sideways, and I bumped into the wall, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I said, okay, hold on. Let's lie down on the couch. So I lie down on the couch. TV is still on, and the whole room starts spinning. The TV looks like a movie projector going around. It looked like I was in the round, 3D. The TV went from one wall to the other wall. I turned around. It's behind me. It's just the whole room is spinning, and I feel like I'm in a cyclone. And I get up, and I'm thinking, oh my God, something's weird going on. My first thought was, there's an aneurysm in my brain. I'm having a stroke. Maybe it's a heart attack. It didn't have any of the symptoms of a heart attack, but I thought I went over to grab the keys to my car, and as I walked out the door, I ran into the door with my nose, and I'm like, well, I can't keep straight. There's no way I can drive. So anyway, I get rushed to the hospital. 911 gets me to the hospital. They clear me for amazing speed for tests. They put me on stroke alert. And I get a CAT scan. I get like 3 CAT scans, angiogram. They take 5-6 vials of blood out of me, and then I proceed to get sick. I vomit violently, and I'm still, things aren't spinning, but it's crazy. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to talk to Andro tomorrow. What's going on? I can't be here. And then, especially after I got sick to the stomach, the doctor says, oh no, you're staying here overnight. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And within an hour, they had the CAT scan results. They said, no problem there. And they said, between your ears, there's nothing. And I'm like, well, great. I already knew that. It doesn't matter in my brain. But they said, no, you're fine. And but they wanted to put me on watch. So, they put all kinds of probes on me. I got an IV in me. They're pumping water in me. They're giving me some drugs. They're giving me what it turns out, they think I'm having an inner ear problem, something called vertigo. And, I stayed there until about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock yesterday. Whenever you might have started receiving some notices on Facebook from me, it's about the minute I walked back in my door, because I'm thinking, my God, I still can't really, even playing that guitar. I was just trying to see if I had dexterity. It's not any, I've got strength, I've got all that. It's just when I stand up too fast, or if I start walking, I don't feel whole confident at that. So apparently there are these crystals in your ears, and sometimes they can break loose, or who knows, they can get adjusted, and it causes you to go off balance. It's in your inner ear. And after all of the tests, all the diagnostics, they don't really know much about this. And they said it's just, usually it just fixes itself. You just got to go away. Anyway, the other good news is, okay, so Bobo's sister as well. You guys are YouTube. We got Bucharest there. So anyway, and thank you, Terry from New Zealand. Terry is always, I love it, Terry. You're always tuning in. That's great. So I am not 100%. I'm a little bit, off. So if I feel a little off, the good thing is, in a stroke or in a problem with a clot or something like this, speech slurs, you have semi-paralysis and things like this. I have none of that stuff. It's just balance, and it's with your ears. So anyway, that's what happened to me over the weekend. And I actually kept these things, that's my proving I'm not just, making up because I'm a little late getting on the cast today. I am off. This one, you'll love this one. This one they put on me to let the nurses know, and they were lovely nurses. This one here, it says fall risk. I guess it could be a good headband. That means, don't let me get up by myself. Maka is on. All right, we have a Georgian. I love this. Thank you, Maka. Well, we're going to talk about Maka a little bit today. But anyway, with all that ado, I'm here with you. I'm okay. I'm healthy. I just got to get through this. What I want to tell you about is, oh man, Andro Barnovi, and it was Maka who's tuned in today, who actually introduced me, or didn't physically introduce, because I didn't see Maka and Andro together. But Maka is a Georgian ambassador for wine and tourism, and I bet the last couple months have been tough for you, Maka, with the not many people traveling. But she is an amazing woman who knows more about the Georgia wine regions and the people in the Georgia wine business than most anyone. And she turned me on to Andro Barnovi, who told me that he was kidnapped, by the way. Here's a political guy, I'll tell you about him. He was kidnapped by the wine gods. He is one of the most recognized political figures in Georgia. He is founder and a winemaker at Wine Artisans, a natural wine winery near Gori, Georgia. The winery has become known for the quality of a wine. It's a boutique winery, and it's amazing what he does with wine blends. He's very experimental. He's willing to try to take a chance. And by the way, Georgia has something like, I don't know, he'll tell us 400, 500 different kinds of wine varietals. So it's there's a lot to experiment with, but he's really focused on varietals in his region, Khartli region. We'll talk about that. But he also has a bit of an odder background. And for those of you maybe who saw some of my email or the registration page, you know that he's a former governor of that region, the Khartli region, where now he's not really governing anything much but the grapes there, which we'll learn about. But he created, get this, okay? He was Minister of Defense, but he created the Georgian National Defense Academy, the NDA. You know, over there in Georgia, they've got a lot of acronyms like our people does. He served as the head of the administration and chief of staff of the outgoing President Saakashvili. We'll talk a little bit about Misha there as well, but he was also dean and initiator of amazing reforms at the Tbilisi State University. He was Georgia's first representative in NATO, in NATO defense educational structures. Earlier, though, in his career, he was very well known as a civil activist, and he served in the military there in Khartli. But in 2016, about 4 years ago, he said, that's it. He quit it all. He left the world of politics and academia to spend all his time in his vineyard and in his cellar. But today, he no doubt still captures a lot of the public all over the world. He's studied in Greece. He studied in Georgia. I'd like to welcome, if you're there right now, Mr. Andro, turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, and come on in because, okay, we can hear you. We need to get your camera on. There we go. Andro, dude.
Hey, I'm happy to see you back, you know, after the difficulties had the last night.
Oh.
But, well, it's all gone, right?
We're good right now. And actually, look at this. You got anything there? I mean, what time is it in Georgia right now?
It's 11:15. It's like, yeah, 11:45. Yeah.
Yeah, almost midnight. Yeah. Are you drinking anything?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
True.
You know, unfortunately, I don't have any of Andro's wines. This is really tough. You know, he makes such little. Some of his production is only 150 bottles of a particular blend or varietal. I have actually Pheasant's Tears, a wine made, John Wordman. And this is not from the Khartli region. This is from Kakheti. It's a Saperavi. It's probably one of the more well-known Georgia grapes. It's a big, bold red, and it's about noon here. We're 11-hour difference with Andro, but I'm going to open this up. Andro, you know, let's just go back. Okay, what do you drink?
Mine is Shop Capito. Just for you to know, yeah. Mine is Shop Capito.
Shop Capito. Okay,
17.
now it's a 27.
Capito. It's it's 17. Yeah.
And how would you describe that to a Western wine drinker? What would it be like?
This is, well, first of all, this is one of the rarest varieties for the region. I mean, it's well known for the quality and everything, but it's almost extinct, you know. And myself and a few other guys here around, we try to bring it back. It's excellent variety. Maybe it's the best red variety for the region. You know, we have the famous Tblisi, which is also very nice, great wine. But Shop Capito is no less. I mean, maybe even better. You know, it's you know, during communist times, they literally wiped out some varieties because they were hard to take care of. You know, they wouldn't give that much harvest. You know, so it was not interesting for mass production. You know, and so nobody cared.
Yeah, the Soviets saw they
just lovely variety. Yeah.
And this is one of the things, as Andro knows, that's one of the reasons Maka suggested I reach out, because I was very interested in meeting people all over the former Soviet states and in the former Yugoslavia over the last 2 years, looking to find people that are resurrecting and bringing back and revitalizing and rescuing, if you will, of varietals that because of the 70 or so years since, you know, in the Soviet era, where it was where it was on quantity, the focus on quantity, not necessarily quality. But
Exactly.
yeah, so I want to go back to your your career briefly, because I think first, people, before we do, actually, Georgia, I want to bring some context to those of you on the webcast today. And what I'm going to do is, let's see, I think what I need to do. Sometimes the technology doesn't. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Georgia's history in wine while I bring up some photos here, because I think so many people don't really know the history. Although with people like Maca and the wine tourism promotion by the government there, it's getting more well known. But tell us about Georgia and wine.
Well, with pleasure, whatever I know. But I know one thing for sure. The thing with the thing I grew up with, that the winemaking is not something to learn, for us. I mean, for all of us, for the country, for the people in this country who still somehow maintain contact, with the ancestry, and who have at least some land, or let's say grandparents or great grandparents, whoever, in countryside or out of the city, we all kind of know that the winemaking is just a way of life. You may be it can be a big or great winemaker, or not really, but I mean, you grew up with this, really. So when I went back, when I decided to make some wine, it was not really some invention for me. I just went back to what all my ancestors would do. What my father did, what all my uncles did, what my both grandparents did. I mean, grandfathers. At some point, we all abandon everything and go back to winemaking. It's the routine way of life. So that's the thing I know for sure about Georgian wine. All right.
Yeah.
But if we
keep going.
Yeah, but if we go back in history, and now there are some proof that the cradle of winemaking, maybe it was this country, this territory, this land on the earth, and we are the heirs, and we just continue as we can. We had hard times as winemakers, I mean, there was no interest from the government. I mean, the communist times in the quality, they all cared about the quantity, and we lost a lot during those years. But now it comes back. You can simply imagine, that we as a country, Georgia, with 520 plus varieties here, and in communist times, only 7 or 8 were used in industry. The rest was simply forgotten. I see the discrepancy, right? I mean, the difference between 500 plus and then the 7 or something. Okay, so I did my own stats in 2008, and we've been using already like 38 varietals. Now 30. It must be much more, but I don't know the exact number. But I mean, it's growing, and every single year some new varietals come back into play, and so we're busy trying, we just go everywhere. Just even I, I have a few grapes in my vineyard, which is one of my biggest vineyard is really, really young. It's like 4-year-old. So I have few grapes there, which I have never tried. I know the name. I know, a few samples survived in the nursery, I know the history, like some text and descriptions and everything, but nobody has tried it.
Amazing.
Can't imagine. So maybe next year or next year I will have some totally new discoveries here, you know. So very interesting.
Yeah, and let's take that's a huge risk to take, right? To plant a vineyard, you have to wait 4 years because first of all, you don't even get any fruit until the third, maybe fourth year, and maybe in the fourth or fifth year, it's ready to start making wine. And geez, what if it's oh, you know what? It's no good, or it's just I mean, you can always say, well, it's different.
We do some study on this, before we do it, so we have a clue.
Sure.
Some expectation.
Sure. Well, hey, for those of the guests that are watching us today, let's just give a little context here about Georgia, okay, and where it sits in the European and Asian map here. You can see this little blue dot in the middle. And actually, I don't know why that's showing up. That's a Sophia. That blue, the green dot over here. If I actually do this, I can kind of go and say, okay, do you see this right here? This is Georgia, okay, and Georgia sits there. It's got coast on the Black Sea. Its neighbors are Turkey to the south and Azerbaijan to the north, and then of course it's or to the northeast, and then of course its northern border is with those your buddies over there in Russia, and then this dot is about where Gori is, the Khartli region where Andro is, and I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit more. Now you can kind of see this is actually Wine Artisans Chateau. This is where Andro is. You're sitting out on your patio
there. The cellar, on the veranda.
Oh, okay. You're on the veranda, sitting on top of his cellar. We're gonna see some photos of that in a little while. So you could see now. I wanted to explain how I got there. Getting a Russian visa is very difficult. Okay. And by the way, this is the Black Sea. Do you see my cursor here? As I'm doing this, I'm wondering if my cursor is seen, but actually, I'm going to do this. Yeah, probably not. I'm going to go right here. This is the Black Sea, and this is Crimea. And Crimea is part of Ukraine, but they've had some people decided to squat there for the last few years from Russia. That's Ukraine, but now part of Russia. This is right over here. If I can do that, that's Ukraine. So what I did is I couldn't go into Russia. I couldn't have a visa. So I took a ferry boat from Odessa, which is about where that thing is, and I came all the way across. It took 2 days, 2 full days on a ferry boat. And this is something mostly where trucks transport goods back and forth. There are even trains that are transported on this ferry. It's not a consumer ferry, really. It's a commercial thing. And I got into Batumi. And then from Batumi, I did a little journey kind of around like this. I went to Ajada, I went to Racha, and anyway, eventually I made it to Khartli and to Wine Artisans. And I'm gonna got one more slide here. We'll zoom right back in, and you can see. Let's see. I think I better move these guys over here. And if you see, get my little pencil out again, right here. This is Gori, and there's something there that's marked. It's highlighted. It's the Stalin Museum. Why is the Stalin Museum highlighted on this map there?
That's a shame, man. That's a shame.
Yeah, it is. So our friend Stalin, who used to hang out at one point with Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt, it was born and not far from where Andro is now making wines. This is the Georgian flag, so everybody can get an idea. I should have done this in my earlier things because I always think the flags, people are so proud of their countries, and the way that they usually express that is through their national flag. And then
that's an old one, by the way.
Is that the old one? So I don't have the right one?
No. It's the right one, but it's historical flag. I mean, it's a flag which comes from somewhere from 11th or 12th century. You know, it's really old.
Oh, okay. So you didn't just sit as soon as you guys were freed from the Soviet era. You didn't just design a new flag. You actually went back to your roots. Okay,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've done that, this is an Andro at a different time. He's got his suit on. There he is at a lectern giving a very important speech. Let's just go and see what I have here. By the way, Maxa. This is Maxa. I had to put a picture of Maxa on here because if it weren't for Maxa, we wouldn't be doing this webcast today. So anyway, how did you get involved in politics? Kind of give me give us an idea. You were an activist first. What were you doing when you were still part of the Soviet Union, and what happened after that liberation, which was, by the way, which was a nonviolent, right? The Georgian Revolution was nonviolent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's quite a long story, long period. I'll try to tell you this in as brief as I can. I mean, when the Soviets collapsed, I was 15. All right. So with classmates, we've been, going to demonstrations every day, and we've been a part of it as young people, But then very hard times started. I was never interested really in politics. I'm not a power thirsty guy or something. It had never been my goal to be there. All right. I just lived my life as a scientist. I was the classical theology and the linguistics and philosophy and all this stuff. I didn't care about politics really. But well, as we proceed and we had a very, very difficult situation in the country. So at some point, and especially when I was outside studying in Greece, it was like 97, 8, really end of 90s. And so from outside, I saw it in a very different light. And I said, well, it's not a responsibility of someone else, I'm also part of this, so I have to do something. And the best idea I got, I went to military because I knew nothing about, about government or state or something. I had my own niche, So I said, okay, I can be a soldier, at least, So let's go there. Yeah. It's a funny story. I won't tell you now, but it's quite a long one how I got there, the details. But well, I managed. As a young scientist, I didn't have to, I could kind of avoid it, but no, I did my best to get there, so I got there. And with time, I spent years, like not many years, but like almost 5 years as a military and officer, because I had a rank from the university, so you're like the reserve officer, and then you join the army and you activate your some scant knowledge about military, which you didn't really learn anything in the university, Yeah. But well, anyway. But then I started my studies, because since I worked, I want to know more about this, And slowly, not slowly, but very fast, really, I became, very, how to say, popular reformist guy in the defense ministry as a young man, and so on. I mean, it's quite a story. And then after years, I left military, and but I remained a soldier inside, like the man of rule and responsibility. So even though I didn't care about politics as such, but when I saw the situation, I said, all right, once in military, then there were situations, and now outside the military field, you know, I became a very active, let's say, activist. And especially because now I was quite well educated in military and the international affairs and public policy and everything. So in these years, I managed everything, you know, like service and also education. Did my dual degree in the States in California, Monterey, in Naval Postgraduate School. It's one of the best times in my life. The best memories about that. Yep. And then went back, and as I said, you know, became. I had my own a little research institute, and we'll be working with, you know, business and government and whoever wanted our services. But then this Shevardnadze times and everything, and of course I joined the rallies against him. So there was this peaceful revolution in 2009, 3, right? And so, and I spent few years outside the government. I never joined the political party really. So I was, you know, teaching and so on. I mean,
yeah,
in and around security and everything. And then the war happened. Okay, so I couldn't really stay out. So again, I started.
And this is the 2008 war.
8, yes, yeah. So after 5 years of revolution, you know, there was a war. You know, people think, you know, who did what and everything, but you better look at the big picture. You know, in 2007, it was the first year when we really managed and sent the Russian military bases outside the country. In 2007. You know, there was an agreement reached in 2001. It was an OSCE format agreement and everything, but it took like 6 years to get them out, you know. So, and in 1 year, they got back now in a new shape. So that's the real story about this war and everything, you know, to put it brief, really short. And then, of course, we have some internal stories, but that's now another story.
Yeah. Yes. We we can talk about that maybe a little bit later, because it's crazy. I will say, and in fact, there's a poll, by the way, that I just put up for those of you watching in. If you let us know if you've been to this if you've been to the visited the webcast before. So this guy is pretty famous that you're with here out on the boat on the Black Sea, I'm assuming. Tell us who he is.
Well, he's the third president of Georgia, Saakashvili.
Yeah, Saakashvili. Yeah, and he served.
I'm visiting him on this photo. I'm visiting him in Odessa, so we've been just, you know, traveling from point to point, and so there's the photo.
Yeah. Okay. So this is taken from Odessa. Well, yeah. I mean, you served as the chief, the chief of his staff in the administration for several years, and then actually we'll continue through these photos, because then he lost an election, right? and this guy, I think, probably was a little bit behind it, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's
he had some money. This guy's not. This guy's not too poor, is he?
Then prime minister. He's a nice guy.
Yeah. So I share these photos to kind of, you know, we're going to get into this wine stuff in a minute, but to show you know, here you are at a protest here. I'm assuming this is a Georgian protest, not the Ukrainian one, because
no, it's Georgian. Yeah, it's in Tbilisi. I was the organizer of this protest, just to support Ukraine. And you know why? I mean, we had the new government, and they were not really supportive to anything we did before, to the policies and, you know, international policies or internal policies or reforms of anything. So they began to appease Russia and, you know, take this kind of stand against them, you know. And during the war in Ukraine, they didn't even express their attitude to this situation, you know. And so we as citizens, we've been demanding from them that they take a stance, you know, and they tell what they think about this, you know, and what is Russia doing and everything. And because we had the same situation a few years ago, and we felt like, you know, we it's our war. It's not some, you know, war in Ukraine, in distant place from us, but you know, it's the same war, the same situation, you know. So we wanted to be, you know, supportive and show our support to our friends. More so that, I mean, we have, you know, many real friends there. I mean, we're very connected people, you know,
to Ukraine,
and we know, yeah. I mean, Alan, you know, believe me, I really, as I was born without politics, and I don't care about it as such, you know. I don't want to be involved in this stuff, you know.
Yeah,
not really, because I know what the better life is, but sometimes you just need to, you know, and this is not the best time really when you need to.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, and here's a call. And so for a lot of our visitors may not know, but pinned on Andro's coat here is a representative of the colors of Ukraine. There's a lot of Ukrainian flags in the background, as well as a Georgian flag there. So he was clearly very, very active in supporting those causes. As we know, you know, through the U.S. got a little bit more understanding during these crazy impeachment trials about, you know, the famous phone call with the new president, current president, the comedian of Ukraine, and about how we held back military aid to the Ukrainians, which were supposed to be used to fight the Russia aggression in the eastern part of Ukraine. But you also, after the administration, you became you helped develop and create the library, the presidential library, like we have for our
presidential library. That's right. Yep. Yeah, and I really made it work. This library, it was very popular, and it was non-partisan. And I mean, we attracted lots of young people and discussing, you know, we've been, you know, having part in the creation of the future of the society in this kind of way, not as a party, not, you know, but as an educational institution with lots of resources and everything. And so it was a nice place, really, you know. But then I left.
You left.
Well.
Then you left. Then you started.
Because, I mean, it was becoming partisan, and I didn't really want to take part in this, you know. So my role was over.
Your role was over. Left, yeah. I mean, you've been a bit of a you know, inspiration and a figure for young people, and you continue to do that even in the wine now. You know, I know that you've been. Yeah. I was in. This is a photo I took. Actually, there's 3 photos that I've merged together here. And let's just see if we can make this a little smaller. Maybe I can do it like that. So this is the top picture. So, you know, that's actually the Georgian parliament. It's in Tbilisi. When I was there, there was a guy who's been sleeping out on the porches of or the steps of the parliament. You know, I can't read the language of Georgian, and especially the characters of Georgian. So there is a little bit of English here and there, but I noticed the American flag here, and I thought I'd just ask you. You know, I'm assuming this is the August War is the 2008 war. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
correct.
And you know, there's still, you know, activism is happening despite you're hanging out in the vineyards in outside Gori. You know, I was there. There was a march. The first day I rode into Tbilisi right after I visited you, because after I visited you, I rode to Tbilisi, and there were probably 200 people, and it was just getting to be nightfall, marching in front of Parliament here. And then the next morning, I came back to see, you know, there still had some of the scaffoldings up. Tell us what Russia is doing today, just briefly, and for those of the non-Georgian, non-Eastern Europeans who may not know what's happening in South Ossetia and elsewhere?
Well, they're trying to mingle and make things worse. That's it. They continue this borderization process. They build these barbed wires everywhere. They don't care where. I mean, they cut the properties of the people on two. Imagine one day the guy wakes up and sees like his house is on one side of this barbed wire, and his yard and the garden is on another side, and they don't let him cross this border, let's say, and they live with this. Can you imagine?
Yeah, and this is right. I mean, there's two separate places. There's up in the northeast, and what's that called again? That region? I'm my head
now,
from my
now we call it South Ossetia. We have this northern one in Russia, and then southern in Georgia. But well, it's a late name. I mean, its historic name is different, and so on. I mean, it's quite complicated and serious issue. But well, one is this one. One is this one, and another one is Abkhazia in the west.
Right, which is where I got caught up a little bit because I could not get to Gori because I was in Racha in the north, and I started going down a road, and it turned from pavement to dirt. And even though my GPS says I'm going the right way to get to Gori, I realized there's not one car on this road anywhere. Not one coming my direction, not one following behind me. And after about,
I didn't know this.
Yeah. After about 45 minutes, I said, "There's something wrong here," and I didn't know about that with Ezia. And I did not. How do you say it again? I said that wrong. I know. The
region.
Yeah, the one that they're occupying.
Ossetia.
No, the
Southern
other
Ossetia.
The region I was in. Yeah, Abkhazia. That's the one I was. That's near you, right?
No. The region you got, it was probably South Ossetia.
Okay.
From Raja, that's the one.
Okay, so South Ossetia. Okay, so
you probably were in Oni or somewhere.
Yes, I went through Oni, and I went from Oni down that road, and then I turned around.
That's the one.
And had to go back to Oni, and I went all the way back in it, and it took me. And this is a problem because anybody going to traveling from anywhere in that part has to go around this occupied territory by Russians, and making travel 3 or 4 times longer than it would be if this was not there, and that's just logistical.
It's 50 kilometers from here, actually.
Yes, it's really close to Gori. Yes,
maybe it's like 50 kilometers or so if you take a straight line, But to get there, we need to take the whole way around through Kutaisi and so on. It takes like 4 hours to get there.
Yeah. Insane. Well, this this is actually what I wanted to show, okay? Because I have this before. Okay, here's the military, the political activists, the defense strategists, the Andro on the left, and very serious. And then in 2016, Andro, you quit everything and you decide to go to the vineyard, and just look at the difference in the facial expression.
Yeah. On this photo, I said like beware wine,
Yes. So you can see that smile, and the one we're seeing right here. Life is a lot more. As I was fond of learning, and as I traveled through Georgia, I realized, like you said at the beginning, people don't learn to make wine there. It's not like you have to go to school to make wine because it's in the culture, it's in the blood. And you have I mean, I rarely found even a 16-year-old girl working in a wine bar in Tbilisi tells me she's making wine. And I'm looking at how young she is, and so it was a rare that you find in Georgia people that aren't winemakers. Isn't that true? Because of this.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but we have to work more, you know.
Mhm.
uh, I mean, this years it brought about a huge damage really to everything, you know, and we have to restore this. The knowledge, you know, in details, it's lost in a way. It's for public. I mean, it's at least for the numbers of people, you know, and we have to really work on this. We have to look at the varieties, to the terroirs, to places, you know, to learn the places.
Yeah.
And recreate the history of winemaking for this country. Yeah. If you take France, for
I
example,
want to.
or take, let's say, Bordeaux, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for centuries, this knowledge was just adding up and adding up and adding up, and now you have this academy there, you know, which is in the cellars, functions in the cellars, and we have to have the same here. We have all this potential, the same history, or maybe, you know, in some sense, even, you know, more interesting in a way because it's very old and everything, you know. So, but the situation today is quite different. So when we make wine, don't we're not just we don't just make wine, but we also learn, you know, and preserve this knowledge somehow.
Yeah. You know, it's. I mean, I've learned that, you know, of every other region that I traveled over the last 2 years in the eastern part of Europe. You know, I sought out people that were rescuing and really focused on indigenous varietals, and Georgia is one of those countries. But in every one of those countries, and I'm sure it exists in Georgia, but so much less so, you do see people planting, cultivating, and making wine from international, even Bordeaux varietals. And I get that, you know, it's recognized, its market, but it's not always true to the heritage or to the terroir.
Not in Georgia.
But yeah,
Not in Georgia.
you don't see anybody growing Cabernet or Chardonnay in Georgia, right? And that's very unique.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Yeah, because in Ukraine, I mean, they've got their own indigenous varietals, but you also have people making Chardonnay, and in Moldova and in Romania, Bulgaria, all these.
Yeah, because even though we had these hard times here, this culture never died, you know, and we preserved these varietals, our old, well, some of them at least, you know. So, I mean, we always felt we made some wine, and so from our grapes and our everything, so we didn't have to reinvent that to that degree,
right?
You know.
And,
so.
Yeah. And you also didn't feel that, you know, in order to find a market for your wine, that you needed to grow something that was more familiar, easier to pronounce for a Westerner or whatever, right? I mean, there is a marketing decision I think people make, and they think, well, if people like Chardonnay, I better grow some Chardonnay. I mean, it's crazy to some, you know, but, you know, that's where I find a little bit of an integrity to that culture and the heritage in Georgia, from my perspective. So endearing.
We have one happy thing about wine in Georgia, you know, that, I mean, we have this brand of being like, you know, the cradle of wine and the Khartli wine. So we can market it not as a varieties, but as a different sort of wine.
Yeah.
So it's easier to get on the market.
Tell, you know, for those on here, explain the difference. I mean, there's a major difference in the way that wine is made in Georgia than most anywhere in the world. And I'd love for you to do that. And while you're telling that story, I'm going to show some slides of the vineyard and of you. So so tell us about that.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's totally different, of course, because, well, wine is wine everywhere. But yeah, we have our very interesting, very old vessel, which we call Khartli. It's really is the best vessel for wine, especially in the initial phase. You know, when you ferment wine and then you keep it for months for, you know, cleaning down and everything, because of its shape. You know, it's a cone shape bottom, It has belly, big belly in the middle, and so it gives you the largest quantity of the best layer of wine, which is this middle layer. Okay, so and it's dug in the earth, which gives you very slow and really small temperature change, the amplitude of the temperature, and which is also essential for wine. And then it's made of clay. It literally breathes, so it lets the bits of oxygen penetrate in wine, which is also very essential, especially in this phase of winemaking. So, so it's an excellent vessel, really. Another thing we do, unlike others, well, I mean, some people, of course, practice this for experiments, everything, but it's not a part of the culture in Europe. But for us, it is to make wine on the skins. So on the skins, yeah, on the skins. Sometimes also on the stems, if they're also ripe. Ripe means like really brown, really dry. Okay, I mean the stems, the branches.
Yeah.
So if we have this type of the stems, we use it in winemaking. You get excellent results. Really, very interesting, very complex wines. And for the experienced palate, it's always super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sometimes it's not for the ordinary user, because well, people, they get used to some particular taste and they want to keep it. But for people who think and take wine seriously, it's super interesting. And of course, it's also very pleasant. You can make it candy if you want.
Very sweet.
Or scientific work, so we can do it both.
Yeah, and this is I'm just gonna put up a photo. This is in your cellar, and these are the quarries. And the other thing that I don't know if you said it, but I was going the styles, but you bury them in the ground, and that's where you get that temperature maintained. There's no, yes, this is your cellar, but it's covered, but this is, all of these are in the ground. You don't have air conditioning or climate control mechanisms in your cellar. It's all natural.
It's natural, true. Well, of course, when I built it, I had in mind the ventilation and everything, and there is natural ventilation, of course, natural, without any devices.
Yeah.
The type of the cellar, there are at least two types, like not very deep cellar, like this one, and a deep cellar. Okay, one is good for making wine, like fermenting wine, and for this initial processes of vinification. And during this process, the nature, it helps you. For example, imagine you have let's say September, October, the harvest, and you crush the grapes and you want to ferment it, right? And you need a little bit higher temperatures in the vessel.
That's right.
Because fermentation, it needs around 20 something, right? Like, it happens from 8, but well, anyway, around 20. And you have it because the soil, it's warm, and you have these quarries in the soil, so you have it. And after fermentation, well, now a few weeks are behind, and I have a little bit cooler temperature, and that's exactly what you need, because now I have changed the vessel for wine. You got rid of this rough lees and all kinds of sediments and everything, and the wine is still not clean. It's full of everything, these residues, so for the pulps and everything, and these dead yeasts and proteins and everything. And you need now cooler temperatures to let it sit down, and you have it again from nature without any artificial involvement, interference. And then after this, well, you change vessel second time. Now you really got rid of this rough lees and everything, But now you have to crystallize the wine stone. So you need really, really low temperatures, and you have a winter ahead.
Yeah.
So in industrial environment, you may need like only 36 hours to crystallize this wine stone, but we can keep it in Quevre for 2 months, let's say, on very low temperatures. So instead of -5, we may have like +3 Celsius, but it still does its work. And in end of February, early March, it's already wine. You know, it's this raw acids they have rounded, and you have excellent new wine in the cellar.
It's
of
like
course,
a great
it still needs
comparison.
aging and everything, but I mean the main it has gone through the main stuff. Okay, and after this, you have to change the cellar because this cellar is no longer fit for later phases for wine because it's getting warm. It's now May, June. You know, it's getting warm, and you don't want to keep the wine there. So for this, I have another storage. It's a 6-meter deep.
Yeah,
You
and I'm
see
showing
the stairs on this picture.
Yeah, the stairs on here. You can see on here. This is right here. These are the stairs, and that takes you down. How much further underneath you're sitting on top of this right now? Yeah,
6 meters.
6 meters. So that's 18 feet or so. Yeah. I want to say too, just in this photograph, take the whiteboard off, that while I was visiting Andro, a group of Indian tourists from India showed up, and it was this is not very formalized like you have in Napa Valley or even in Bordeaux and some of the other places I've traveled. It's very ad hoc. People show up and say, "Hey, we were interested in Georgian wine," and Andro says, "Yeah, come on in," because we were already talking about wine and tasting it, and it was so cool, right? Isn't that I mean, these for most Indians from India, wine is probably not part of their culture, but yet they've got that curiosity and they showed up because they'd heard about Georgian wine. I have a question since we've is to get Andro's definition that of you said you quit in 2016 to pursue grape growing and winemaking in a natural winery. How do you define natural wine? Because recently in France they've tried to come up with a designation. They've established some new, as they've done, as everybody, as make policy about what is natural wine. But what is natural wine, just to you?
You can list many things here for a reason, because I mean natural wine is many things, but for me primarily the first place is the yeast. Okay, the yeast, they are the very, very important guys. They create wine as such. Okay, and in natural wine, they must come from nature, not from the lab, but from nature. Okay, so that's, for me, that's natural wine. Okay, then of course many other things, like I don't use sulfur. I do use sulfur for washing the vessels, and not in wine, Okay, so no filtering. No, we do rack wine.
You rack the wine, but don't.
So my wines are no filter. No, I do rack them about seven times at least. During about like 18 months, 17 months. So they look very clean, even crisp, but of course in the bottle you have some lees. Of course.
Always.
But they're fine lees. They're nice guys as well, and they help wine. Yeah. It's not a danger. On the opposite. I mean, it's good when I try some new wine. The first thing I do, I look it on light to see if there's any leaves inside.
Yeah.
If there are no leaves, I'm not really interested, you know.
You're worried. You want some more friends with you right there. Some good friends.
Absolutely, yes. Yep.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so that, yeah. So natural yeast, wild yeast, sometimes we call. The yeast is coming from the vineyard, yeah. And with that certainly comes some risk too, right? In all of that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. But you know, if you understand as a winemaker that the hygiene everywhere is the key for wine, then you keep this hygiene in the vineyard, and you keep this hygiene in the cellar, and then you don't really have such risks. Well, I make wine for a few years now, like not really many years, but like 4 or 5 years, right? I mean, 2006 was my first personal vintage, let's say.
Personal, right?
Okay, yeah. I remember many more vintages in my father's cellar, but it was like my personal now. And well, I did distill 2 or 3 wines because I didn't like it and I didn't want to keep it, you know, so I distilled it during this time. But this happened.
And when you distill it, when you distill it, you're making what?
Brandy.
Brandy, yeah. Okay.
Brandy. But these 2 cases happened during 4 years out of my about 30 different wines. Okay, so
yeah, just twice. Just twice.
So I wouldn't say, and this I distilled them not because they were, you know, let's say spoiled or something, unhealthy. No, they were normal wines, but not the interesting ones, you know. So why should I keep it? So I distill it, and I got nice brandy. Why not?
Why not?
I love it too.
You know, and for all of you tuning in right now, because I had we had a little bit of hiccup and a little bit of long intro because I was in the hospital. Andro, will you stick around a little bit more till we can do it? Because I know we're about at an hour point. But we're just getting into it. I think many of our viewers would like to continue. If you guys want to stick around, would you stick a few bit? You're not ready for bed, right?
I'm not.
No way. Okay. Good. Let's continue this then. I just wanted to say, and by the way, if you have questions for Andro, use the chat room there. I have a poll set up right now that I can see that of all the people that have answered the poll, not one person, obviously this is discounting the people that from Georgia that are on call, nobody's been to Georgia yet. So that's a good thing. So what I'm going to do is I have another poll while we continue on this. And I'm going to, let's see if I can pull this up. So Georgia has some very interesting, we talked about nobody's really growing Cabernet, or you're not going to go and find a Georgian Chardonnay anywhere, but there are some famous varietals and some not so famous. So I wanted to publish a little poll while we talk about maybe if you've tried, maybe some of you have tried Georgian wine. So if you have, let us know which ones maybe you tried. Coming back to riskiness and the possibility of faults in the where you talk about hygiene, and you and I talked about that quite a bit when we were there, and you've devised some your own as being a scientist and a thinker. You've certainly done some. I'm going to show some pictures here, and behind you are various tools of the Georgian cellar, and you can see how they're not they're you all probably handmade. You probably made all of those, or people, but I imagine the taller ones are for punching down, and I know that the shortest one is for cleaning the quarry. Am I right?
That's right. If you can see it on this photo, I'm not sure, but yes, the long one is here. Yes.
Yeah. And this one here I'm going to draw a circle around it, but right behind you, what's that?
I can't see it, you know.
It's
it's
yeah, you're looking at it on your phone, huh?
yes.
Yeah. So it's very small to you.
I'm trying to erase this.
Oh, I can clear it. Go
Which
ahead.
I just did. Okay, I did it. Yeah, but
it's a stick with it looks like you almost would like use it to mix and turn. It's got several like a signpost that would have many directions. It goes
that's what the French would call bâton, like bâtonnage. You know the word, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Bâtonnage. That's when you punch the skins down back in the wine, back in juice during alcoholic fermentation, because one of the byproducts of the yeast consuming sugars is carbon dioxide. So emit two things. They eat sugars and they emit two things: alcohol and carbon dioxide, and which is a gas, and it pushes the layers of the skins upwards. So these layers, they begin to float on the surface of the juice in Qvevri or wherever. All right, and but then the new layers push them up from behind, you know, from down, and you end up having quite a thick layer of the skins in the air. You know, the juice, it drains down and it takes all the sugars, all the acids with it. So the skins, they stay unprotected, and they very easily start to rot.
Yeah.
And of course, if it happens, it spoils the wine. So I had to go down there 5-6 times a day during about 2 weeks. It's a disaster, really. But I mean, you have to. If you want to have a wine, you have to do it.
And part of natural winemaking, there's no machine.
Yep.
So you've got
yeah.
a lot of muscle going on there, muscling that wine. How many different wines? How many different wines do you make at Wine Artisans?
Every year we make like 7-8 different wines. I think we will go up to maybe more than 10 soon. But yeah, quite few.
Yeah, and they're very small production. I think you. How many? What's the biggest production?
Last year it was the biggest production, 6,000 bottles.
And of one varietal, of one type, what would be like?
No. In one variety, less than 1,000 liters. It can be a few hundred liters.
Yeah,
maybe 300, 700. You know.
Yeah. So this is all very handmade for sure. How did you come up? How'd you come up with the name? I mean, you know, maybe it's a stupid question, but it's Wine Artisans. That's who you are. What's the reference for Andro in that in naming your wineries as Wine Artisans?
Well, artisan as a hand. I mean, referring to the handmade stuff. I mean,
yeah,
we make it with knowledge, you know, with skill and knowledge. Okay, so whatever the artisan means, the same here. So initially, we're the association as well, you know, and initially we've been called the Association for Traditional Winemaking, and then we changed it to Artisan Winemaking, and then I made it short, you know. I said, okay, just let's say Wine Artisans, and that's it.
You are, you know, go ahead.
No.
Yeah. So you know, another thing when we talk about natural winemaking, and you were talking about how the difference in Georgia is making wine with the skin contact for a long time. You know, there is a bit of a trend, if you will. There's a bit of a trendiness in wine in not only natural winemaking, which you guys have been doing there for 8,000 years, but also in the in amber wines or skin contact wines, which some people famously call them orange wines. Which for me, I hate the term. You know, I think it's more amber. Yeah. So, but when you're making wine with skin contact, when you're making wine with a white grape, The reason that all grapes, with the exception of Saperavi and I forget the other one, there's probably a couple that are actually red grapes, that is, that are not white inside. The color from the wine comes from the skins. And in winemaking in the West, we will use skin we will keep them on the skins for a while to get color, but nobody does it unless they're in the trendiness mode of keeping the skin contact with white wines. But this is tradition. How long do you keep your white wines on the skins at your?
It depends. I mean, it very much depends on the variety, very much depends on the terroir, and of course on the combination of these two. There are some wines. Let's start with this. I never make wine without skins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I can use only, let's say, 5% of the skins, a tiny bit.
Okay.
Or 100.
Yeah.
I can use them during 1 week, let's say, or during alcoholic fermentation, or even further for several months, like maybe 6-7 months. It depends what kind of wine I want to make out of particular grapes from particular place.
Yeah, and that comes to your desire to experiment. And there are some Georgian winemakers who are very held to a tradition of a specific number of days, months, whatever you want to call it. I mean, not down to the hour, of course.
I agree, but I hate it. Yeah, because you have to know the function of the thing when you do it, right?
Yeah. And as much as preserving the heritage is important, there's also a point is that the people that started making wine 8,000 years ago obviously made adjustments and changed and experimented themselves. So that evolution needs, in my opinion, needs to continue. And that's kind of what you're doing. And others. Yeah. So I wanted to show this picture. It came up before, but here is one of Andro's wines that I tasted. I don't remember, and we can't really tell by looking at it, but the color and granted, it's probably not 100% accurate to color. It's a digital photo, but this is a white grape, and somebody might looking at it may say, well, that looks a little like beer. It looks a little like brandy. It looks a little like a cognac. But no, this is white wine that's been on the skin. So there, I had to run through some photos because these are some of my photos. I spent a couple days with Andro, and as you saw with the Indian tourists. But one of the things about Georgia, and I don't know if Maka is still on here. If you are, Maka, chime in a bit. But I wanted to talk about the food a little bit and about the hospitality. It's you don't just throw a couple things in the oven and cook it out. I mean, it is a feast. And when I was there, I was so amazed at the food in a moment's notice, because you had been out most of the day. Remember, you got there just about 15 minutes before I got there, because you had an event that day. I forget what it was, but look at this. Look at this food that we had. We had a great evening at Wine Artisans, tasting a lot of those wines. We probably tasted 7 or 8 different ones for sure, and you have to remind me, because I loved this, and I've got to figure out how to make this. What are these again?
I love it too. It's actually herbs. We call it prale. It can be different herbs. It can be, even green beans, for example. With walnuts. With walnuts and some, with walnuts. Some spices, of course, and you have these pomegranates on on the top. Yeah, it's very tasty.
To give that, it is so delicious. You get going now. This I didn't take. We were tasting wines out of the out of the containers in the cellar. We were tasting them out of the Andro, when you rack them down to the lower cellar. They go into stainless steel at that point once they've been through their quarry and their skins, right? And so there's a lot of wines I tasted that were experimental down deep in your cellar, which I don't remember, but this one this is not a Khartli Ridge. Is it? Is this a type of Saperavi?
No.
Okay, because it's
in Georgian, no, it's not Saperavi. It's called kind of Medrus heavy Saperavi, whatever.
Yep.
Saperavi from certain place. Okay, but in Georgia you have many different grapes using this root of the word, because Saperavi means, like, if you translate literally, it's a coloring. It's something that gives color.
Okay.
Like peri is a color. Okay, so Saperavi is, we have Saperavi, we have Sapere, we have whatever. I mean, we have different variations of this. So Saperavi is something with color.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just one grape which is unrelated to famous Saperavi, but that's his name.
That's his name. And just while we're on it, but the heritage, Georgia has also one of the most unique languages and the written word. And tell us a little bit about that language, how it, like the wine for 8,000 years, is unlike anything else in the world.
You mean the script or the language?
Yeah. Or both? Both.
Actually, both. Yeah. I mean, it's very small family of languages, if we can say it, and most of these languages are spoken in Georgia. I mean, it's we call them incorrectly dialects, but they are languages.
Yeah.
Okay, and there are a few more in Northern Caucasus, and that's it. Like Circassian, for example, the Circassian language is the same family, but that's it. I mean, around us, there is nobody who speaks anything similar to us.
Yeah,
so
and
really strange language. Yeah,
really
in
unique.
That terms.
Because in and around Eastern Europe, a lot of the languages, with the exception of Romania, can kind of have roots into I don't want to say
Latin or
Romania for certainly Latin, but not those Russian, Serbian, the what do you call them? But anyway, the Slavic. Thank you.
Languages.
As opposed to the Germanic and the, a lot of languages have roots in Germanic, Latin, or Slav, but Georgian is so unique to itself. And it's I was fortunate that sometimes the road signs would have Latin letters, Latin alphabet, so I could figure out where I was. But the language has no base in anything that's familiar to me. But that was some of the wines that we had, and then after wines, of course, we get into music. And I thought, why not? I have a 2-minute video I want to play. Okay, because Andro, I love the fact that we saw his pictures of how serious and how much he, had really defined, even to this day, the Ministry of Defense Academy, or rather the National Defense Academy. People are studying Andro's work and they're following policies he set up, 10 years or less ago. But Andro, when he finally, and this is a lesson in love and passion and in being true to your health and yourself, is do what you want to do and make sure you love what you do. And I just got a text message from one of our viewers on here who sent a photo of a Georgian wine tasting he did in 2019. I'll see if I can figure out a way to bring that up. But I wanted to play a bit of our evening together, if that's okay, if I have your permission, Andro.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Let's go. Okay, so this is less than 2 minutes, so stick around. At the back end of this, we're going to talk more about choosing your path and following your dreams. Hold up. Let me back this up. There we go. Choose from.
Got a left light. I got a second sight. You're amazing. Observation. Patient. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
that was the evening.
That was a great evening. And this, I mean, this is Georgia. Okay, I want to just tell you right now that the people love to sing, they love to play music, they love to have good food and the great wine. By the way, this Saperavi, which is a 2017, you know, from Khartli, it is really, I'm sorry, 16. It is drinking beautifully. It is. I mean, it's not like drinking a
16 was also nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a Khartli. I mean, it's not a Khartli wine, but you know, it's Georgian at least. At least it's Georgian. You know, while we're on,
I love Saperavi. I make it every year.
You do, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's a.
We have a small vineyard in Khartli, the best place. It's a tiny one, but still, I always take every year. I take at least 1,000 kilos and make it.
And you make it, yeah. I
love it.
One of the things you've done, and I have another short video I wanted to play. That you've been part of what you've doing, not only in making wine artisans, you are promoting those producers in the Khartli region to mature and continue to market and continue to make wine and make indigenous varietals. And this is the from the Khartli Artisan Wine Association, which is, you know, related. You can talk about it on the back end, but let's watch this. Georgian music too here.
Armjera politihure, armjera statistikuhure, armjera chimile, strategioule. Memjera tilis niales, davenachebis shriales, memjera Caucasiones, da dedametis triales. Tamischi damalevine, es vino ochertiale, egeda tzagmavi bikro. Ქვეყნის უგუმატრიალ ქუხილი მტკვრისაც ასას წვდებოდა მარცხნით ლიახვი აძლევდა პანს ლაღის შვილების ხტომა სელქობა სიამეს ფენდა გორი ჯვრის მთასა და ქართლის ველი ბევრ ჭირ ნახული იმად ძმურ კავშირს და ერთად სულასა გაღმა გამოღმი კერდ გადაშლები ძმურ სალამს აძლევს ულოცავს გზასა არ მჯერა პოლიტიკური არ მჯერა სტატისტიკური არ მჯერა ხიბილი სტრატეგიული ჯერა დილის ნიავეს და ვენახების შრიალის ჯერა კავკასიონის და დედამიწის ტრიალი გამისხი დამალევია ეს ღვინო ხეთიანი ეგება წაღმავიდი ქვეყნის უგონატრია გამისხი დამალევია ეს ღვინო ხეთიანი ეგება წაღმავიდი ქვეყნის უგონატრია.
So you are not, you've turned into a different kind of activist here. And I don't call it activist anymore, I guess a promoter, but you use that term in a positive way. You're really helping your local farmers, your local winemakers. I know when I rode my motorcycle I came from Racha that day, but I went through Gori and passed many of your neighbors who are making wine there, and I'm sure as much as Georgian hospitality is so rich to a visitor like me, I think the community is really strong as well. And how's that working out?
Yeah, you have difficulties everywhere, but the main thing is that these guys have to have some incomes out of the craft they know, and we try to somehow facilitate this. It was like 7 years ago when we started the regional wine fests to enable them to come closer to the market, let's say, which they did. And now we have few of our members which work completely independently, like the winemakers. They market their wines with no problem. They export them in many countries in Europe and in the world elsewhere. So yeah. I try to have this kind of approach, not to manage really everything, but to try and whatever you can, some positive incentive you can give to the things, then it works better and longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So through this wine fest, we really create. Then we have this, web shop and this special portal for this not fancy, not very loud, let's say, winemakers, but great winemakers with great wines. And we give them all the possibilities we can give from our side. And it's a community. It's an association, but it's not like the organization, like strictly figured, but mostly like grassroots movement, like winemaker to winemaker, this kind of a thing. I love it.
I'm gonna one of the attendees, one of the viewers is Rudy Maxa, by the way, who is a travel television host here in the USA. He has a radio show that goes on to like 400 stations. He has a TV show on PBS. He's watching tonight. He's been to Georgia, and he's actually, he's mentioning before that he'd been, you can see in the chat, he's been to the Stalin Museum. But he just sent me a photo. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Of his Georgian wine tasting in 2019. So he was there just last year. And this looks like 8,000 vintages. I don't know, with those, the place he's in. I don't know if he's still on. Is that where you did the tasting, Rudy? If you're still on, the photograph. A lot of the wines are the backside, but I just thought I'd share that to say, well, wait a minute, you haven't. Okay, actually, no. Well, yeah. Did we? Okay, so I got it. Yeah, this is with Lisa. This is Andro, his wife Lisa, who helped with all the food, and she did do some singing, and she also did some videoing of music. There's a lot more music recorded from that night, but we had to do the selfie at the I think I guess this was before I was leaving the next morning, which was an incredible I gotta say,
so,
yeah. I mean, unforgettable. So much that I've got to go back. So, Andro, while we've covered so much. Let's pull up the latest poll. So, look at this. So, 40% of our attendees have tried Saperavi, which is not on. That it looks like 20%.
We expected this.
What's that? We expected this. Yes, exactly.
We expected this.
Yeah. And Racastelli is 20%, but nobody has tried Shakapito, Chinuri, which are both Khartli wines, and Kishi is another one of those rare varietals from Kakheti that is being rescued. And Mitzvani, it's kind of not really fair to put Mitzvani because there are so many different kinds of Mitzvani. It's kind of like a muscat. There's probably 20 different kinds of muscats. Mitzvani is kind of right. Isn't that right? Would I be fair to say that it's
absolutely? Yeah. In Georgia, every region has its own Tzvane. So
yeah,
yeah.
But you were talking about possibilities with your wine makers, nagers, and there's possibilities here because the 40% of people online today have not tried Georgian wine yet, and that's a good thing because this gives you hopefully you see something here that that encourages you to try that. Yeah, Rudy says it was a big wine store in Tbilisi, so I'm sure it was. To me, that's definitely 8,000. Yeah, that was 8,000.
I recognize the picture.
Yeah.
The photo.
Yeah, I tried to go to as many wine. One thing is wine is in the culture there. One thing is wine is, as I said, everybody's a winemaker. That doesn't mean everybody makes good wine. And one of the things we talked about at the beginning is hygiene. Hygiene is the clear differentiator for everything. If you take care from the vineyard to your cellar to the quarry, cleaning it every year. You developed a very unique device to clean your quarries, and maybe we'll end with that just because it's scientific. And I was just so impressed at your ingenuity and your thoughtfulness. And a lot of these quarries are lined with beeswax as a way to kind of to do that. But you do
good, but
yeah, because it covers up the porousness of it doesn't allow the breathing through the ceramic. Through the clay, but without getting too deep into it, you kind of take hygiene almost to the way you probably developed the National Defense Academy. You took a real systems approach to you have to do this right and not So tell us about that thing you invented.
Well, hygiene in the vineyard first. Means the health of the soil, and of course the healthy ecosystem around. So if you disturb soils really heavily, I just imagine it's an environment where your grapes grow and flourish and develop, and if it's not healthy, you won't get anything healthy in the end, right? So you need the hygiene in the vineyard for sure. You don't need the heavy chemicals. You have to not only hygiene but also some life. You have to have a living environment around. If you don't let your soil fungi develop and connect the plants between each other, then then you don't have any ecosystem there, So you have to allow that ecosystem grow. So you have to not really disturb soil above the necessity. And I try to do it, for example, not plow, okay, but maybe just cut grass and leave it on the place, just rot and become humus later, every year as it adds up, and then you create this the layer on top of the soil, which also protects the humidity in it, So you better make some kind of a grape forest around, and then you have the best grapes. Okay, so that's the hygiene for the vineyards. But then the hygiene for the cellar, it's to keep unwanted bacteria out. And you cannot really do it with the cleaning and the washing only. It's very hard to do it, And when you don't want to use any chemicals, the solution is ozone. For me, it's ozone, O3.
Ozone.
With one free atom of oxygen, which is ready to oxidize anything it finds around. And in the first place, of course, this molds and fungi, the mushrooms, or all kinds of bacteria. It's the easiest thing to oxidize, and it works. It's not just a theory for me, but it's a practice. So I purify air with the ozonizer, with the ozone generator, which the old scientists in Tbilisi State University, they made it for me.
Yep.
I love it.
You gave them the idea, and they said, "Well, we'll give it a shot," and they made it.
They did it.
I saw this.
They did it. Yes.
Somewhere I have a picture of it, and unfortunately I can't share it with you. But it's So you're de-ionizing. I don't know. Ozoning.
Whatever. Ozonizing probably.
Ozonizing would be the word.
And ozonizing. And also the vessels, but I'm ozonizing water in the vessels. I just, fill them up with the query by water, ozonize. And, there's the final phase of cleaning, of course. I don't rely only on this in query, because I heat them up, this stuff. I heat them up, this old wax, it goes down, I, pull it out, re-wax, and so on. And then, of course, wash thoroughly under pressure and so on. But also, the day before harvest, I ozonize them, okay, to kill if there is anything developing or any unwanted bacteria on the walls of query. I kill them by ozone.
So you do that the day before the harvest, before you bring in the grapes and the skins and the stems and everything that you throw in there. And in cleaning these, we saw the brush that was in one of the photographs. When you get in, people actually climb in. You climb in. Your workers climb inside these. They've got to climb those little holes, if you remember the photograph, and get in there on the big ones. Obviously, there's smaller ones. You've got various sizes, but for those big ones,
I'm happy. I'm very lucky that I don't fit inside.
Oh, yeah. So you get to find the little guy to do it. Yeah, because Andro's pretty big here for sure. That's good.
So
I'm
lucky.
That was by design, I'm sure, right? You're a very strategic guy.
That's the thing I say. I just happen not to.
Yeah, you just happen not. Hey, obviously the wine is the biggest region. If you are a wine lover, and wine drinker, to go to Georgia, because it is where the birthplace, arguably the birthplace of wine, where they do make wine still to this day using the traditional methods in the quarry, like you said. And you've heard the terms amphora is another word for a quarry, or I think in the Thracian, the Thracians, which is going back 6,000 years. They called it the pitos. I think they called it pitos, and different names for these vessels, but they were designed because of, as Andro said, letting that sediment kind of get down, naturally into there. And anyway, it's amazing. But what would you,
if we really want to say what is query, just if you have like 2 minutes, I'll tell you something else. So its shape is really important. Okay, I said this, but I said it really briefly, so I'll try to elaborate a little bit on it.
Good.
So the shape is what? It's a belly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you take any vessel, just any vessel, okay, it's a query, stainless, barrel, anything, any vessel, it has three layers, different layers of wine in it. Okay, so the best one, of course, is the middle part. Then, like, second best is the top, and the third best, or the worst, or whatever. It's not worst, by the way. I mean, it can be great, but very different. Okay, so it's the lower part, the lowest part. So in query, because it has a belly, this middle part is maybe twice as big as it would be in any other vessel. Okay, so this belly makes it. Then its bottom, which is cone shape, right? So imagine you take like any vessel which is flat bottom, okay, and then you take the cone as bottom, and imagine that the lees on the flat bottom vessel, they spread on the surface, and they're in touch with wine, right? And then in a cone shape bottom, when they accumulate, and so you have the least possible surface where the lees are, touching wine. Okay, so that increases this middle layer even further. Very important. Then, when you have this round, in a way, this cone shape thing with a belly is a kind of a round as well, right? And during fermentation, you have a even or equal distribution of the temperature in the beverage. So the process is even and steady, and kind of it all happens together in a very harmonic way when you have this round shaped vessel around. Okay, so if it would be a square or something, then the effect would be very different. Okay, so it's a technological vessel as such. Even oak barrel, let's say, it's a technological vessel, but if you compare the functions which the oak barrel gives and the query gives, so the query gives the way more, like times more. It's micro-oxidation, it's even distribution of the fermenting temperature, it's stable temperatures, okay, without any interference, okay. It's I don't know, forgot to know everything. I mean, anything you want during the initial phase of winemaking, you have it. Just anything, It's a perfect vessel.
The query, Georgian, very unique. I met a winemaker in the Berda region, who is making wine in query in his vineyard in Slovenia, and he brought them from Georgia. He didn't want to just make them. He Kabai. I don't know if you know Kabai. He's actually a French guy who ended up in Slovenia, married a Slovenian woman, and now he makes wine, natural wine there in. So this and he's not the only one. He's one guy I met, and I saw his queries, and I think he has 3. That the process, because those things are fragile. Let's face it. They, it's like a clay pot. It could break. In transport. Once it's buried, you're safe as long as you keep it clean. But but absolutely. So in 3 words or short phrases, why should once this wacky world of Corona, and we will talk a little bit about that, should somebody who's never been to Georgia actually make the trip beyond the wine? The wine's one thing, but Georgia's much more than wine, as I learned and was inspired to go there for. What would you say is why go to Georgia instead of somewhere else as you're planning this your first trip, maybe outside of the lockdown of wacky world of Corona?
I would say it's really different. The people, you won't find probably such crazy people anywhere. All crazy.
Well, especially the drivers, by the way, the drivers, if you're on a motorcycle, man.
Love the guests, love to have fun, so it's a nice place. What can I say? Just come over, you love it.
Yeah.
The nature is very diverse, nature is really diverse. You can have a ski resort and the sea bathing at the same time within like 2 hours drive difference. So really nice country to have a rest and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's green corona wise, we sadly had some casualties, of course. 14 people passed away because of this corona. 14.
Only 14. Think about this, folks. Who watch the news.
Then, when you compare with what happens in other countries, it's a disaster. It's a disaster. It's so sad, so sad. Yep.
How's the economy doing? I know. So Georgia took some pretty drastic measures to keep its death and case count so low.
It shrunk. Of course, it shrunk. Yeah, we have some shortage well, fortunately, it doesn't feel like fatal in a way, we still live, we still do things. Of course, we slowed down, there are no incomes or very low incomes, in many domains. But so far, so good, so far we survive. The worst thing is for the people without a property and without some, the unskilled labor who have to work every single day to make their bread. Okay, for them it's very, very heavy period now. Because the shops are closed, the bazaars, these markets, they're closed. Now they open for the last 2 weeks, but imagine almost 3 months before it was closed, so they couldn't work anywhere.
Yeah,
and they have no savings. So it was really hard. But Georgia is a little bit different society as well. There was a study a few years ago why people don't die in Georgia. Because if you compare the incomes, they must die, and they survive. And so there was a quite intensive or extensive research on this a few years ago. And the result and the answer was that they're helping out each other. That's why. So
that the research shows, okay, and I can attest to that. Even as a traveler, they help each other. This is breaking news. I'm a everything packs on my motorcycle. I travel very compactly, and everything has a place, and I have a system every time I pack up and go. And I'm rarely in over 80 countries and over 150,000 kilometers, over more than that, maybe almost 200,000 kilometers of travel. I've rarely lost anything, and if I, and forget, I've hardly ever been I mean, once I got ripped off in Croatia, but no. But the point is I got to Batumi, which is the coastal on the Black Sea, you know, the city with casinos, and it's really cool place with great wines in the Ajera region down in the south western part of Georgia. I left my adapter, my power adapter for my MacBook, for my laptop, in a hotel, and I got to my next location. I could not believe it, and I never have ever done that. So I wrote an email to the hotel, but you know, they probably hardly read English. I didn't get a response. So what did I do? Macha's online, I think, still. I called Macha. I sent Macha an email. And before I knew it, you know, Macha has, you know, sends out her little beep, 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 to her, you know, amazing network of winemakers and people. And there happened to be a winemaker from Tbilisi, Chono was the guy, and he happened to be in Batumi, went by the hotel. Macha arranged for him to pick it up. And when I was in Tbilisi, I met this winemaker, tasted his wines, and he returned my power adapter to me. Talk about people helping each other. That touched my heart, you know, because it would have been a disaster to try. You know, I could have found one, I'm sure, in Tbilisi, but still, they're expensive. And I say this with all my heart, that the Georgian people are so warm, and the hospitality, the fetes, the feasts, and the great wine. Get to Georgia for sure, and if you get to the Khartli region near Gori, instead of the Stalin Museum, go see Andro. You will have a lot more fun, and it will be a lot more positive. Oh, yeah!
Don't go to Stalin Museum in this bastard's house. Don't go there. Come here.
Yes, exactly. You'll find a lot more, and good music and fun, and I guess we can't cut this off before we mention cha-cha. You know, because about wine, cha-cha is like part of the culture.
What you don't know, I have a new distillery here.
No, really?
Yes.
You didn't have it?
Yeah, a nice one. You know what? I'll try to show it to you.
Okay, this is good. We're coming live from Georgia. We are now moving. We're going.
No, we're getting to it. There are no lights now. I'll put the lights now.
Okay.
You'll see.
So cha-cha is kind of the if you've had rakia in any of the Balkan countries, you know, it's a brandy-esque distilled spirit, but it goes to another level in Georgia. And as Andro, maybe did you get out of Wi-Fi range? Kind of froze for a minute. You still there, Andro? He's definitely still there, because we've got, you know, he didn't drop out of the room, but he's going to show us the distillery. There we go. Turning on the lights is what he was doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, my.
So I just wanted to show you the distillery here. This one.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, that definitely wasn't there before.
Yeah, no, it was not there. It's a ziggurat.
Yeah. So now we have okay, what's that? That's a fountain over there, huh?
Yeah, that's just the water.
Okay, that's the water, right?
It's a water place, yeah.
Okay. So you now built this distillery. So we're going to be getting you know, Wine Artisans cha-cha.
Absolutely. I am in the process of distilling now.
Okay.
All this preserved cha-cha and wine.
And wine.
So we're gonna have some brandy or cha-cha or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, another reason to come here.
Another reason to come back.
You have to return.
Oh, I know, man. I'm just talking to you, and we've obviously gone longer than I've been on any of these webcasts because it's so cool just talking to you. And
I'm on the veranda here. You must remember.
yes,
Place.
yeah, no, yeah. Look at this. This is it's midnight, well past midnight there. It's actually 1 a.m.
Huh?
And look at the if it was daylight, you'd see he's got a whole nother compound with a barbecue and a big room beyond that. So this is a great place. It's my home away from home when I'm in Georgia. So as we round down, I can tell that the webinar always has a limit of 2 hours, and I've never gone this long, Andro. That gives you an idea. You know, we need to be doing this more. If will you come back?
Is it? Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So I want to thank you, Andro.
Thank you, man.
So much for staying up so late, sharing the world. Did we lose you here? Oh, there you are. Sharing your world, the Georgian world, with so many people that need to be enlightened and waken up. So I extend an invitation on behalf of my Georgian friends that everybody should give a shot. It's a wonderful country, and there's not too many tourists. And you really have a rich experience. The Caucasus Mountains, Tblisi, along the river. It's a beautiful old architecture and modern architecture, and it's compact. You can walk everywhere, which is so great in the main city. And then the Khartli region, Ajar in the south, Kakheti in the north. You don't need to travel far. Everything's close. Hey, how's the road? Have they finished? I mean, we got about 40 seconds here. Did they finish that road that goes through? No, it's still, yeah. Okay.
Still,
Yeah. Okay. But that's okay. I will be back. Thank you again. We're running out of time. I'll run my closing video. Thank you for tuning in to the Journeys Webcast. I'm Alan Karl, your host. Be sure to tune us in every Monday. The time changes depending on where we are in the world. This is Alan Karl, and where will your next journey take you? I tell you what, big hugs to you. I love you, Andro, and
I love it.
And
It
say
was so much fun.
Yeah, give my best to Lisa, and we'll be back. Okay. You're awesome.